Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Maria Taide. We're back with Jane Hoffacker for Future Hacker. We're talking about the gaming industry. And on the episode 1, she just gave us this amazing background about what's been happening on the market. And now we are getting into the new technology piece. Jane, welcome back.
Hi, Maria. Thanks for having me back.
So let's get into the cross-screen entertainment piece. It's just crazy how we are moving from computers to mobile phones, and then tablets, and YouTube, and then back to the TV. So it's no longer about just playing the game, but there's this whole new segment of people that enjoys watching the games being played. You see now traditional sports channel on TV streaming e-games, and it seems that entertainment and gaming are getting mixed. I just love this case of how Burger King managed to sponsor this small team, and with a marketing campaign, they get it played by most famous players on FIFA. For me, it's such a great example. So do you see this type of marketing move as an evolving trend?
I want to say Burger King's marketing has been wickedly clever. The FIFA example is just one example of them, but there's a lot of just really brilliant minds at Burger King. I want to start by just breaking down cross-screen entertainment into 2 parts. There's the part of being able to play a game on different devices. And there's a different part of being able to play with friends who may be on different devices. And you may not realize how tricky the second part is. For the longest time, you had to play with your friends on the same devices or else you just couldn't play together. So the second part, I think, is newer and just a really exciting area for a gamer. But to answer your question, yes, emphatically yes. I think this is definitely a trend and it's definitely evolving. And I see players wanting more of both, right? They want the flexibility to play a game on any device, and they're looking to connect with their friends no matter what device they're on. And by the way, having a bigger collective pool of players also means faster matchmaking. It takes less time to find other people to play with you, and this means that you can get into your game much faster. So cross-platform play, I think, will only continue to grow in importance and just become a bigger norm than it is now. Secondly, you also mentioned the convergence of gaming with other forms of entertainment. That's a particular intersection that I'm super excited for. I see the convergence definitely happening, and I think it's happening across 3 different areas, right? You have IP, tech, and audience. In terms of IP, it's probably the oldest area and something that most of the audience is familiar with. Gaming IP has crossed over into TV and film with varying levels of success. There's IP like Pokemon, Sonic, Warcraft, Mortal Kombat, Tomb Raider, you name it. You've seen movies in those franchises, or if you grew up in the States around the 80s and 90s, then you might have remembered TV shows like Street Fighter cartoon series or the Mario Brothers shows. In terms of technology, though, definitely I'm seeing convergence there. Epic's made a lot of ground in terms of making the Unreal Engine a new frontier in VFX. And if you're not familiar, Unreal is a game engine, which is software that anyone can use to make games. And it might be kind of hard to picture if you're not in the industry, but it's maybe a close analogy is like Microsoft Word, which basically provides a space and all these tools for you to create letters or resumes or any other kind of document, right? And so that's kind of what Unreal Engine is. And it's traditionally used to make games, but what's amazing is to see that Hollywood studios are using things like Unreal to power their cinematics, right? And even when you get away from the software and you look at how a TV show like The Mandalorian is shot, Mandalorian's shot with a lot of AR technology using LED screens. Imagine being an actor on the set and your stage, you're just surrounded 360 with all these LED scenes, and the LED screens are just rendering the sky, the sun, and the distant landscape of the world that you're supposed to be in. That's how shows like The Mandalorian are being shot now. And that setup that I just described for you is reminiscent of how game levels are designed inside a game engine, much like Unreal Engine. And so I see Hollywood has gone really hardcore into digital graphics. And in a funny way, it's kind of old news. If you're a gamer, you're very used to seeing digital graphics, but it's kind of a newer thing for Hollywood. It's something that was funny for me because the last 3 years I spent at Riot, I was diving really deep on the animation industry. And it just always made me laugh how much people saw animation as for kids. But when you think of Marvel movies, they're very heavy CG, practically an animated movie, right? And so like the third area, and I think the real convergence that's happening that's interesting is in the audience. People who play games, they also listen to music. They also play sports and watch movies and have lives. That's not news. It's always been the case. But what's changed is that like we've become more aware of the overlaps because we see more of these intersections surfacing in streams or on Reddit boards, Facebook posts, etc. And that for me is where the true evolution in entertainment is happening. It's in the audience. Market data analysis is all catching up to seeing these intersections, but understanding them as something completely different. And, you know, going back to what we discussed in the last podcast, like it's part of the reason why I don't like the term gamer. You don't need to be a musician or an athlete to enjoy those activities, you know? And so there's not really an equivalent for gamer in these other areas of recreation. I guess my point is like the intersection of popular culture and gaming is where I think the biggest opportunities are. And I can give you two examples of what I'm talking about. One example that I really love is Gillette Venus did a like My Skin, My Way kind of campaign in Animal Crossing where basically they partner with the game developers to add alternative body skin options in the game. So like you could pick more skin tones. You can even pick different skin types like freckles or acne or even cellulite, which I think is great because it's like this idea of representation. Another example is actually in Warzone. Like we did a Haunting of Verdansk event with the Saw and Texas Chainsaw Massacre around Halloween. So imagine running around through like a nighttime version of this urban battleground. And then suddenly you see black TV screens like flickering to life and it's like Billy from Saw, or like you're standing around in the dark with your buddies and, you know, trying to like watch out for other players. And then all of a sudden you hear a chainsaw behind you and it's Leatherface. These kind of experiences that really integrate other elements of your life into games, I think is a powerful next step. And, you know, maybe we're tired of all feeling boxed into one label or another. So maybe it's just refreshing to be spoken to like a multidimensional human being.
Yeah, definitely, Jane. So let's talk about new technologies applied to gaming. This industry has been using artificial intelligence for quite a while, right? And future possibility is to let a character behave in all kinds of ways a designer has anticipated. I guess it will take the complexity of game development to this whole new level, as there's no guarantee about which way the story would go. So what's your view regarding the advancements of AI applied to this industry?
That's a great question, Maria. I think AI in gaming is really interesting. First, I want to just comment it as a player. I feel like as a player, I tend to notice AI in games mostly when it's bad, unfortunately. Like there's actually this adage in game design where you really want the player to blame herself for failing, not the game itself. And the sentiment behind this is that like you really want the player to feel agency over her actions, and you really want her to connect her actions directly to consequences and rewards. Like if she's blaming the game, that means that there's something that was broken about the game itself and it wasn't her skill or what she was doing. So good AI is so natural that it should feel unnoticeable, right? Unless you're really, really looking for it. And AI is what really helps the world and the characters feel more natural and less scripted, right? Now, in the real world, like advancements in AI and automation are impressive, but they're kind of scary to me. I hate that Alexa knows my voice. It really creeps me out. And I'll let you in on a secret. I've accidentally taught her that my son's voice is my husband. One day, my 3-year-old boy was just talking. She's like, "Oh, is that you, Andrew?" And he said yes. And I was like, "Uh-oh." So I'm not really sure how that's going to play out.
That's scary, really.
Right? But like, yeah, so advanced AI, I think definitely helps games create these better experiences. And for like super high skill players, it's going to make games more challenging and way more realistic. And when you think back to like really old school shooter games, we call them NPCs, non-player characters, basically the AI in the game. It used to be like the NPCs, they never would dodge from you. Like they just kind of stood there, or they never like shouted out their friend's name when you shot their friend AI dead. But nowadays I expect them to, because you start seeing that in games. It's really crazy. Like the NPCs will try to dodge out of the way, or they'll be sneaky, or they'll do things that make it harder to get them. So those things are pretty cool. But me personally as a gamer, I don't always want very realistic AI. And I say that because I'm not actually a really good shooter. Like I'm not really good at the game. So I actually want the AI to be a bit dumber than me. And I want them to be more predictable just to make the game more fun for me. And, you know, that's actually another secret you kind of learn as a game designer, is that like most people don't really want a simulation. They just want a fantasy. Simulations have realistic stakes. They have realistic skill curves. And I personally think that's not what most people play games for, right?
It's not supposed to be too hard, right? We still want the gamer to keep playing and keep enjoying himself, not turning it to something stressful, maybe. I don't know.
Exactly. Like I want to live the fantasy of being a pilot. I don't want to live with the stakes of crashing into the ground and, you know, causing death and destruction. Like I don't want that, right? So yeah, I think we're on the same page there. One more thing I want to mention on AI automation that maybe most people haven't thought about is that it has actually a lot of good application in moderating toxic player behavior and detecting cheating. If you think about the volume of data created just through chat and like in-game behaviors, it's beyond what human beings can manually moderate. So we really do need the help of machines to protect us. You see it in social media and other places, like you just need that layer of protection.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't thought about this part. So basically you're using artificial intelligence to somehow monitor and make sure that it's somehow a safe environment in the gaming as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it could be as simple as filtering out common bad words so that like people aren't offended in text chat. It can be other things like detecting whether you're using illegal software to be better at the game and stuff like that.
Interesting. So Jane, another big trend is the rise of hyper reality. So basically blending virtual and physical reality, that it won't be about this image that you mentioned in the first episode of this lonely person sitting in the apartment, wearing VR glasses, immersed on his own reality all by himself, but players actually gathering in physical spaces with helmets and backpacks, interacting with each other. It's going beyond audio and video, and we'll use all senses with physical props so the players can actually feel and smell things. And it sounded so cool to me. That's such a truth, immersive and social experience. So how far do you think we are from that? And do you believe this is the future of entertainment as a whole and not only applied to the gaming industry?
That's another really great question. What you described there in your example is location-based entertainment. And it actually, I think, has some roots in traditional theme parks like Disneyland. Disneyland, or Disney in general, I know has done a lot of interesting work innovating their park experiences with technology, including VR and AR. So I do think that it has a place in our future, like a super high-end immersive experiences can be impractical for in the home. So it makes sense to me as an attraction to a physical location. The reason why I say it can be impractical for the home is just like, I mean, can you imagine if we could smell each other through Zoom? Like, I guess that'd be cool, but I feel like I'd probably switch that off most of the time. Or
maybe just during a cooking class, it can work.
Yes. But like, in other news, I think like games are actually a window into that future, actually. Let me ask you this. Like when you woke up this morning, I'm guessing that you probably did a lot of stuff on autopilot, right? Like you made the coffee, maybe brushed your teeth, got dressed. It's because the environment, your house and the controls, your body, it's all really familiar, right? Like you don't think twice about it. But in a digital environment, for example, like those things are simulated and you have to interact with them. And how you do that is very different than you do in real life. Maybe a better example is like there's certain conventions in gaming that's naturally understood if you play a lot of games. Like if I see a giant empty pit in a game, I am inclined to try and find a way to jump over it. And I don't know if that's really intuitive for somebody that is encountering empty pit for the first time, right? It's just kind of a weird thing, but you get it if you play a lot of games. So I feel like these kind of gaming conventions and things like UI design and stuff like that are going to be foundational to how worlds in VR and AR will work. But something I think we're going to see much sooner than these big immersive multi-sensory experiences, especially because of the lockdowns and all that other stuff, is I think we're going to see deeper integration of reality and gaming. Here's an example. In Call of Duty, and I'm sorry, like I have a lot of these examples from Call of Duty, but we launched an augmented reality campaign to basically reveal the latest Call of Duty title, Cold War, in a different game, Warzone. The whole campaign, I won't go into it, but it's an interesting example because it involved dropping hints to reveal this new game on the internet. And we also delivered clues to real homes and like had it all streamed live. But the one particular moment that stands out for me is there's this moment where a streamer basically had to break into this secret bunker in Warzone. So like in this virtual space in one of our games to find the next clue. And if you've never played Warzone, it might be hard to imagine, but like, it's just this giant map with a bunch of other players trying to kill each other, basically. And so like to get to this bunker across this giant map without getting killed by another player is like really, really tough. And the thing that was really remarkable about this is that like he was basically guarded by other players. These are like enemy players that are just surrounding him.
Oh, that's really cool.
Right? And so it really breaks your fourth wall in terms of what's virtual, what's real. And we actually managed to get to the bunker, find the next clue and stream it live. And again, it was for the community. It was for everybody's benefit. And so like this really like integrated reality into games. So yeah, I think like hyper reality gaming will be less driven by the technology itself as it is driven by like changes in our social patterns and behaviors and what we consider our community.
That's awesome, Jane. I love your examples. So everybody, that's the end of the second episode episode, but as you can see, we still have a lot to talk about, a lot of new cool technologies applied to this industry. So stay tuned that we're moving to the third one.
Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.